Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update video. We'll have a bit of a chat about what's happened in Spain over the last week or so, some of the main stories that have broken over the week, and we'll also go into the press and see what's happening in the news today about Spain. Now, as you can see, it's a fantastic day today. There are some clouds in the sky. We're going to get up to around 30 degrees Celsius, a little bit blowy at the moment. The wind is quite strong, so hopefully it won't affect the sound quality of this video, but let's be honest, the good weather is here in Spain now. So into the news, and the big story that broke yesterday, the amnesty for the Catalan separatist politicians, people that tried to break away from the country back in 2017. The amnesty has been approved by the Spanish Parliament. They only just scraped in all of the opposition parties here in Spain against the amnesty, and of course the government and its partners, different political groups around the country, in favour of that amnesty. And of course, in the international press, this is the main headline about Spain today from the BBC. Spain passes amnesty law for Catalan nationalists. Spain's Congress has approved the government's contentious Catalan amnesty law, which has now overcome its final parliamentary hurdle ahead of its implementation. The law seeks to withdraw pending legal action against Catalan nationalists for separatist activities, including a 2017 referendum and failed independence bid. The amnesty law has spent 6 months in the parliament since the Socialist Party, the PSOE of the Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez, presented it. So 6 months this amnesty law has spent in the parliament, different political parties debating it back and forth. The opposition parties, as I said a minute ago, against this amnesty law and did everything in their powers to stop it from going through. Because in their eyes, if you try to separate from Spain, break the constitution, you are a criminal. And that's why this amnesty law has been so contentious, so dividing. Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez, of course, needs the support of these Catalan separatist parties, for example, the Junts party led by Carles Puigdemont, and also the ERC party, the Republican Left of Catalonia party, which also wants to separate from Spain. Now, you would think that with this amnesty law, Catalan separatist politicians would settle down, thank their lucky stars. This has all gone away now. All of those charges have been dropped and they can't go to jail anymore, except for Mr. Puigdemont, which is a little bit controversial still, I believe, but you would think that they would settle down and not have any more aspirations for separating from Spain. Well, it's not the case, because yesterday, after this law was passed, one of the leaders of the ERC party, that Republican left party from Catalonia, came out and said that a new referendum needs to be held. People have to decide whether they want to stay as part of Spain or not. So this whole separatist movement hasn't gone away. If you listen to politicians like Mr. Carles Puigdemont or Mr. Junqueras, the leader of that ERC party. And what this also means for Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez is that he can also rely on the support of those separatist politicians for the next 3 years of his mandate. The Sánchez government has been wobbling over the last couple of weeks or so, failing to get support for some laws that it wanted to pass. So not easy to get things done here in Spain, not easy to get laws passed, because the parliament is very divided. And if you don't get everybody on board, you don't get these laws passed. But Mr. Sánchez, I think, will have the support to see out his mandate over the next 3 years. But again, time will tell. Now, another story in the press that has caught my attention, and somebody on the live stream last night also brought this topic up, a brawl that happened on the island of Mallorca. We can see it here, and 8 people have been arrested for this huge fight or brawl in Mallorca, and it's a hot start to the tourist season, according to the headline. The tourist season in Mallorca has started with several incidents between groups of European tourists under the influence of alcohol. 8 English men were arrested this Wednesday afternoon for participating in a riot on the terrace of a restaurant located on the Illets beach in the municipality of Calvià. One of the restaurant's waiters was injured with a reserved prognosis, and 2 off-duty civil guard agents who were in the premises at the time were also attacked and are awaiting medical evaluation. So the first incident, a group of 8 drunk British tourists starting a fight in a bar, and there happened to be 2 off-duty civil guard officers there who are awaiting medical assessment because they were obviously beaten up by these 8 drunk thugs. The article continues. The events occurred around 7:30 p.m. on the terrace of a well-known restaurant on Illet's Beach, Balneario Illeta, which has tables and chairs at the foot of the sand. There was a group of around 20 English tourists who were celebrating a bachelor's party. Most of them had booked hotel accommodation in Palma, but they had travelled to Calvià to have drinks at this restaurant. At a certain moment, as explained by the Calvià local police, one of the terrace employees caught their attention for their uncivil attitude, since they were throwing cans of beer into the sea and were bothering the rest of the clients on the terrace, the bathers who were on the beach at the time. The response of the group, which showed they were under the influence of alcohol, was extremely violent, according to municipal sources. A fight broke out in the middle of the beach involving tourists and restaurant staff who tried to pacify the situation. The first to intervene were two off-duty civil guard agents who were having a drink on the terrace at that moment. And the article goes on to say that rarely has such a violent reaction been seen, said a spokesperson for the local police. So absolutely disgraceful behaviour from this group of 20 British men who were on the island of Mallorca for a bucks party, throwing cans of beer in the sea, annoying people who were swimming in the sea at that moment, and when they were told not to do it by the waitstaff, they started a fight. Absolute animals. And this is one of the reasons why people are fed up with tourism and tourists on the island of Mallorca, because people like this come down, get too drunk, they can't hold their alcohol, start fights, and generally ruin it for everyone else. Let's read on. It's not the only incident that has been recorded this week with a group of uncivil tourists, with the high season just getting started. On Monday afternoon, the National Police had to use riot gear, I'll say it again, had to use riot gear to break up a group of 200 German tourists under the influence of alcohol who had caused altercations in a leisure establishment in the El Arenal area of Palma. The events occurred on Monday afternoon when in what is known as Calle del Jamón, in the centre of Arenal de Palma, where German, Dutch and Austrian tourists are mainly concentrated. Around 6 in the afternoon, the group of around 200 German tourists under the influence of alcohol began to create incidents in an establishment, breaking furniture and causing other damage to the place. Those in charge of the premises security kicked them out of the establishment, but the group remained outside in front of the premises, as reported by the National Police. The tension grew and the group attacked one of the workers, who were forced to call the National Police in command of the Prevention and Reaction Unit and also the local police. The group of 200 people refused to disband and leave the scene with the arrival of the agents. What's more, they scolded the police, shouted insults and threw bottles at them. The agents fired shots into the air with the shotguns they used to fire rubber bullets until they managed to disperse those present. So again, what the heck is going on in Mallorca, and what a start to the tourist season. Riots with British tourists, riots with German tourists, and the police having to use the riot squad to calm these 200 German tourists down. Again, what absolute animals. So all I can say is that with two incidents like this taking place in the last week of May on the island of Mallorca, what is the rest of the tourist season going to look like? How many more events like this are we going to have to put up with, or are people on the island of Mallorca or Ibiza going to have to put up with? That's the question. So it's no wonder, as I said before, that people on those islands, residents on those islands, are sick and tired of tourists and the tourism industry. And the final story that has been featuring heavily over the last week or so in the press here in Spain, unfortunately related to the island of Mallorca again, and it's that tragedy that occurred last week, I think, in a bar there, or a bar, restaurant, beach club, whatever you want to call it, the Medusa Beach Club, I think it is. Medusa means jellyfish in Spanish, Medusa. And the roof of this bar collapsed, killing 4 people, 2 of which were German tourists. Another person was from Senegal, and another Spanish woman who was working at that beach club died, unfortunately, as I just said, and another 16 people injured, the majority of which were Dutch tourists, I believe. And it came to light during the week that this place did not have a license to operate with this new renovation work that they had done, so it was illegally open, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the owners of this establishment, who are apparently from Austria, or at least that's what the press is reporting. So a tragedy there in Mallorca, but this is something that happens far too often, in my opinion. As I mentioned earlier in the week, something similar happened a year or so ago in Murcia. There was a fire that ripped through a nightclub, killing various people. Not sure exactly how many people passed away in that fire, but again, no license at this place, and the beach bar in Palma operating without a license for these new renovation works. So what's going on here? Is it a problem of bureaucracy, that bars and restaurants have to wait too long for licenses because the local council is not efficient? Is that one of the problems here? So these bars and restaurants decide to take the risk to open anyway, and then something like this happens, and of course the SH1T hits the fan. And worst of all, people end up dying or getting injured when they shouldn't have, because they shouldn't have been in that place in the first place. So another tragedy that could have been avoided if the owners of that establishment had stuck to the rules and not opened without a license. The same as that nightclub in Murcia shouldn't have been open, and people should not have died. And as I said, these things seem to happen far too often in Spain, unfortunately. On that note, I'm going to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. If you have anything to add to the conversation today, the comment section is the place for you. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego from sunny Madrid.